I still remember the sound of his mom's footsteps outside the guest room door. Not because anything crazy happened right away, but because of what she said after she walked in. And honestly, I don't think I've ever looked at my best friend the same way since. My name's Ryan. I'm 26 now. This happened about 2 years ago, back when I was living in northern Ohio, just outside Cleveland. I worked at a warehouse during the day. Nothing glamorous. I drove a forklift, stacked pallets, loaded trucks, came home smelling like cardboard and diesel fuel every night. At the time, I was sharing a tiny apartment with 2 other guys from work. The kind of place where nobody really talked unless rent was due or somebody forgot to buy toilet paper. Life felt stuck. Wake up, work, microwave dinner, sleep, repeat. The only thing that kept me sane back then was my best friend, Matt. I'd known Matt since middle school. We were complete opposites, too. He was loud, confident. The kind of guy who could walk into a bar alone and somehow leave with 6 new friends. I was quieter. I listened more than I talked. But somehow it worked. It always worked. Even after high school. Even after life started pulling people apart. We still saw each other almost every weekend. Usually at his place. Matt still lived at home back then. Not because he was lazy or anything. His dad had left years earlier, and he helped his mom with bills. Honestly, I respected him for it. Their house sat on this quiet street lined with old trees and cracked sidewalks. Nothing special. But it always felt warm. Like people actually lived there. You know what I mean? The TV was always on somewhere. There was always coffee brewing. Always some random classic rock station playing low in the kitchen. And his mom, Diane, she was one of those people who made you feel comfortable immediately. Not in some fake overly friendly way. Just calm. She remembered small things. Like how I hated mustard. Or that I always took my coffee black. Stuff even my own family forgot sometimes. She worked at a dental office during the week. Reception desk. Long hours. But somehow she always seemed patient. Steady. I used to joke that Matt got all his personality from trying to compensate for how chill his mom was. And she'd laugh every single time. Trust me, she'd say. He's been exhausting me since 2001. Little stuff like that. Nothing weird. Nothing even remotely close to weird. At least not then. Back then, she was just Matt's mom. That was it. I need to make that clear. Because if you heard this story from somebody else, they'd probably make it sound different. Like one of those fake internet stories. But the truth is, the weird part wasn't physical. It was emotional. And honestly, that made it worse. It started the weekend Matt invited me over to watch the playoff games. This was late January. Cold as hell outside. The roads were covered in dirty snow that never fully melted. I almost didn't go because I'd worked overtime that week and barely slept. But Matt kept texting me. Bring beer. Don't flake. You're driving because your car actually has heat. So I went. Same as always. When I got there, Diane was in the kitchen making chili. The whole house smelled like onions and garlic. Matt was yelling from the living room before I even took my boots off. Ryan! Hurry up, kickoff's in 10. Diane smiled when she saw me. There's food on the stove if you're hungry. I said thanks. Normal. Everything felt normal. For most of the night, it was just football and trash talking and empty beer bottles piling up on the coffee table. Same routine we'd had for years. But around midnight, the snow got bad. Like, really bad. Wind shaking the windows. Roads disappearing under fresh ice. I figured I'd head home anyway. But Diane looked outside and immediately shook her head. No chance. I've driven in worse, I said. You've also made terrible decisions your entire life, Matt added. Diane laughed. Then she grabbed extra blankets from the hallway closet. You're staying here. Simple as that. Honestly, it wasn't unusual. I'd crashed there before. Usually on the couch downstairs. But this time Matt's cousin had already taken the couch earlier that week and left half his stuff there. So Diane said I could use the guest room upstairs. First door on the left. I remember grabbing my bag from the car while snow hit my face so hard it actually hurt. The whole neighborhood looked dead quiet. Streetlights glowing through white wind. It felt strangely isolated. Like the world had disappeared outside that house. And I didn't know it then. But that feeling stayed with me the entire night. The guest room was small. Old floral blankets. A little lamp in the corner. One of those rooms that clearly only got used during holidays. I changed into sweatpants and laid there scrolling my phone for a while. I could hear the TV downstairs. Matt yelling at some replay. Cabinets opening in the kitchen. Normal house sounds. Comforting sounds. Eventually everything got quieter. Then silent. I figured everyone had gone to bed. I was just about to fall asleep when I heard footsteps upstairs. Slow ones. Not Matt's. Matt walked like he was trying to break floorboards. These were softer. Careful. The footsteps stopped outside my door. Then there was a small knock. Ryan? Diane. I sat up immediately. Yeah? She opened the door slightly. Just enough to peek in. You need another blanket? It gets cold up here. No, I'm okay. You sure? Yeah. She nodded. But she didn't leave right away. That was the first moment something felt off. Not bad. Just different. Like when a conversation suddenly changes tone and you can't explain why. She leaned lightly against the doorframe. I forget how tall you are now, she said. I laughed awkwardly. I've been tall since like 9th grade. I know. Then she smiled. But it wasn't the same smile she usually gave. This one looked tired somehow. Or lonely maybe. I don't know. That's honestly the best way I can explain it. There was a pause after that. A long one. Then she quietly said, You boys are getting older faster than I'm ready for. I remember not knowing what to say. Because it sounded simple. But it also sounded heavier than that. Like she meant something else underneath it. Then she shook her head slightly. Anyway, good night. And she left. That should have been the end of it. Seriously. But after that conversation, I couldn't sleep. I just kept staring at the ceiling. Thinking about the way she looked standing there. Not flirtatious. Not inappropriate. Just sad. And for some reason, that bothered me more. The next morning, Matt left early for work. Weekend shift. Construction job. He woke me up by throwing a hoodie at my face. Lock the door if you leave. Then he disappeared. Typical Matt. I got downstairs around 10. Diane was sitting alone at the kitchen table drinking coffee. Still in sweatpants. Hair tied up loosely. The TV was on low in the background. Morning news nobody was actually watching. She looked up and smiled. There's pancakes if you want some. I sat across from her. And right away, I noticed how quiet the house felt without Matt there. Almost too quiet. We started talking casually. Work. Weather. Random stuff. But the conversation kept drifting into more personal territory. Not intentionally. It just happened. She asked if I still talked to my dad much. I shrugged. Not really. She nodded like she understood that answer better than most people would. Then she said something I still remember word for word. Loneliness sneaks up on people. I laughed a little. That sounds depressing. It's true though. She stirred her coffee slowly. You wake up one day and realize nobody's really asked how you're doing in a long time. That line hit me harder than it should have. Because honestly, I knew exactly what she meant. And I think she could tell. After that, something shifted between us. Again, nothing obvious. Nothing dramatic. Just awareness. Like suddenly we noticed each other more. Over the next few months, I kept going over there. Mostly for Matt. But I'd find myself talking to Diane longer than before. Helping her carry groceries. Fixing little things around the house. A cabinet hinge. A porch light. Small excuses to stay an extra few minutes. And every time, there'd be these tiny moments. The kind you can't really explain to anyone else. One night she asked me to help move a bookshelf. When we set it down, we both reached for the same corner at the same time. Our hands brushed. And neither of us moved immediately. Not romantic. Not dramatic. But I remember the silence afterward. I remember her looking away first. I remember my chest feeling tight for no reason. Another time, I came over and found her sitting alone on the back porch. No lights on. Just staring out at the yard. You okay? I asked. She smiled faintly. Yeah. Just thinking. About what? I almost asked. But something stopped me. Instead I sat beside her. And we just listened to the rain for a while. That became a pattern. Quiet conversations. Late night talks in the kitchen after Matt went upstairs. Little pauses that lasted too long. Sometimes I'd catch her looking at me. And she'd look away quickly. And then I'd spend the whole drive home wondering if I imagined it. I started feeling guilty before anything even happened. That's the crazy part. Because technically, nothing had happened. But emotionally? Something definitely was. And I knew it. One night, Matt invited me over for drinks again. But halfway through the evening, he got called into work unexpectedly. Emergency plumbing issue. He complained the entire time he grabbed his tools. You can stay if you want, he told me. I'll probably be back late. I should have left. I know that now. But Diane was already making coffee. And the snow outside had started again. So I stayed. We sat in the kitchen talking for hours. Not flirting. Not really. Just talking honestly. About life. Regret. Getting older. Things people usually avoid. At one point she looked at me and said, "You know what your problem is?" "What?" "You care too much about disappointing people." I laughed softly. "That's not exactly a dangerous flaw." "It can be." Then she looked down at her coffee. "Sometimes people spend their whole lives pretending not to want things." That silence afterward felt massive. Like both of us understood something without saying it directly. I could hear the clock ticking on the wall. The heater kicking on. My own heartbeat. Then she stood up suddenly. "I should go to bed." "Yeah." But neither of us moved right away. That was the moment I realized this wasn't harmless anymore. Not emotionally. Not for me. I started avoiding their house after that. For almost 3 weeks. Matt kept texting me. "You alive? Did you join a cult?" I made excuses. Work. Headaches. Car problems. Truth was, I didn't trust myself anymore. And honestly, I didn't trust the situation. Because once you start waiting for someone's texts, once you start thinking about them randomly during the day, you can't pretend it's innocent anymore. Then one Thursday night, Diane called me directly. Not Matt. Her. I remember staring at my phone in complete confusion. She never called me. I answered immediately anyway. "Hey." Her voice sounded nervous. "I'm sorry to bother you." "You're fine. Matt's truck won't start and he's stuck at work. I tried jumper cables but I can come look at it." There was a pause. "Thank you." When I got there, Matt still wasn't home. It was freezing outside. The truck battery was completely dead. Took maybe 20 minutes to fix. But afterward, neither of us went inside immediately. We just stood in the driveway while cold air turned our breath white. And then she said something that completely caught me off guard. "I miss talking to you." I swear my stomach dropped. Not because of what she said. Because of how honest it sounded. No games. No teasing. Just truth. I looked away first. That's probably not a good thing. I know. Another silence. Then she laughed softly. "See? There's that guilt again." I should have left right there. Instead, I followed her inside. That decision stayed in my head for months afterward. The house was quiet. Warm. The kind of warm that makes you sleepy. We sat in the living room this time instead of the kitchen. TV on low. Some old movie neither of us paid attention to. At one point she asked, "Do you ever feel like your life is happening somewhere else?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" "Like, you wake up every day and do the same things, but none of it feels real anymore." I didn't answer immediately. Because honestly, that was exactly how I felt back then. And hearing someone else say it out loud scared me a little. Then she looked at me. Really looked at me. And quietly said, "You make me feel less alone." That was the moment everything changed. Not physically. Emotionally. Because once someone says something like that to you, you carry it. Whether you want to or not. I remember sitting there completely frozen. Part of me wanted to stand up and leave immediately. Another part of me didn't want the moment to end. And that terrified me. Then we heard headlights outside. Matt. The tension snapped instantly. She stood up fast. Too fast. Matt's home. Like I didn't already know that. I grabbed my jacket immediately. Heart pounding for absolutely no visible reason. Matt walked in carrying tools and complaining about work. Completely unaware. And somehow, that made me feel even worse. The next few weeks were awkward. Not openly awkward. Just internally. Every interaction felt loaded now. Every glance. Every silence. And the worst part was? Matt trusted me completely. That's the piece that still bothers me. Because he never questioned anything. Not once. Then came the night I still think about sometimes. Even now. Matt had gone out with coworkers. Diane texted me around 9. Simple message. "Can you help me move something heavy?" That was it. I knew I shouldn't go. But I went anyway. The second she opened the door, I could tell something was wrong. Her eyes were red. Like she'd been crying. "What happened?" I asked. She shook her head. "Nothing. I'm fine." Classic answer people give when they're absolutely not fine. Turns out she'd gotten into an argument with her ex-husband earlier that day. Money issues. Old resentment. The usual. We sat in the kitchen again. Same kitchen where all of this started. And for the first time, she really opened up. About feeling invisible. About getting older. About spending years taking care of everyone else and suddenly realizing nobody was taking care of her. I listened. That's all I did. But sometimes listening is dangerous. Because people remember how you made them feel when they were vulnerable. At one point she started crying quietly. Not dramatic. Just exhausted. I handed her a napkin awkwardly. And she laughed through tears. "Sorry. This is embarrassing." "It's not." Then came the silence. That long silence again. The kind we kept falling into. And before I could think too hard about it, I reached for her hand. Just instinct. Nothing planned. She looked down at it. Then at me. And for a second, neither of us moved. I can still remember how nervous she looked. Not excited. Not reckless. Just scared. Like me. Then she leaned forward slightly and kissed me. Brief. Hesitant. Barely even a kiss honestly. But it felt huge. The second it happened, we both pulled back immediately. And I swear the entire room changed. Reality crashed back in all at once. Matt. The house. Everything. She looked horrified. Ryan. I know. No, I'm sorry. We can't. She nodded quickly. Eyes glossy again. I know. Then we heard tires crunch outside. A car pulling into the driveway. Both of us froze instantly. Matt. I stood up so fast I nearly knocked over the chair. My heart was pounding hard enough to hurt. Diane wiped her face quickly and grabbed random dishes like she'd been cleaning the whole time. Matt walked in 2 seconds later. Laughing about something on his phone. Completely normal. Completely unaware. Meanwhile I could barely breathe. That was the closest call. And honestly, it scared me enough to finally understand how dangerous the situation had become. I left maybe 10 minutes later. Made up some excuse about being tired. Matt slapped my shoulder before I walked out. Don't disappear for another month again. That line hit me harder than he realized. Because the truth was, I already knew I had to. After that night, I stopped going over almost completely. Not because I hated her. Honestly, that would have been easier. I stopped because I cared too much. About her. About Matt. About what this could turn into if we kept pretending emotions weren't involved. Diane texted me once after that. Just once. I'm sorry. I stared at that message for probably 20 minutes. Then I replied, you don't need to apologize. But I think we both understood it was goodbye. Matt eventually noticed something was off. Not the real reason. Just the distance. One night he asked me directly, did my mom say something to you or something? I almost laughed from panic. No. Why? You barely come around anymore. I shrugged. Life, I guess. He accepted that answer. And somehow, that made me feel worse. A few months later, I moved out of Ohio completely. Got a job near Pittsburgh. Fresh start. New apartment. New routine. I told myself that was the end of it. And mostly, it was. I never crossed a line beyond that moment in the kitchen. Neither did she. But emotionally? I think the line got crossed long before that. That's the part people don't understand. Sometimes nothing really happens. And it still changes everything. I saw Matt once last year when I visited home. We grabbed drinks. Talked about work. Bills. Getting older. Same stuff guys always talk about when they're pretending not to talk about feelings. At one point he mentioned his mom was dating someone new. And I felt this weird mix of relief and sadness hit me at the exact same time. I didn't ask questions. Didn't want to. Some things are better left alone. But every now and then, usually late at night, I still think about that winter. That house. The sound of the heater running in the kitchen. The pauses between conversations. And honestly, the thing that stays with me most isn't the kiss. It's what she said before any of that happened. Loneliness sneaks up on people. Because she was right. It does. And sometimes, by the time you realize it, you're already standing somewhere you never meant to be.